All right, welcome back. Talking about subnational government for 2026 proposal is what we are taking a look at. Subnational government, particularly municipalities, have historical importance worldwide, meaning that state governments are the closest to the local communities within their domain. But the question is, since they have been budgeting money here and there, how significant are these budgets when it comes to developmental projects in the state? For instance, let's take a view of some of these states and their budget for 2026. Lagos State, for instance, is proposing a 4.2 trillion naira budget. Akwa Ibom State is proposing a 1.3 trillion naira budget. Again, Delta State is proposing a 1.6 trillion naira budget for their people. Nasarawa State is proposing a budget of 517. Plateau State is also proposing a 705 billion naira. Cross River State, on its part, is proposing 780 billion naira. And for Oyo State, it is 891 billion naira. Anambra State also is proposing a 759 billion naira. For Ekiti, it is 415 billion naira. Katsina State is 897 billion naira. Now, all this money in trillions and billions, the simplest question to ask is, how transparent will all this money be used judiciously for most of the state projects? But guess what? Of all these state projects that we are seeing, majority of the state government concentrate more on capital projects. Some of those state capital projects is gulping as much as 80% of their budget, some as high as 90%. For instance, Akwa Ibom State budget for 2026 of 1.3 trillion naira has a provision of over 75% of it going into capital project. Meanwhile, capital project is a real project that really take care of infrastructural need of the people. Talks of road, talks of hospital, talks of bridges, talks of water, and other infrastructure that the people need. Lagos State, for instance, with over 4.2 trillion naira, has a capital provision of over 78%, where the remaining 22% is for recurrent expenditure. And someone will want to know, what is that recurrent expenditure? These are money that are paid for salaries, for illumination, for travelings, and other part of the state government engagement. But the issue still boils down to the aspect of judicious use of some of this money. So joining me right now is Dr. Onovughe Manuel. Doc, a good day to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
All right, so let's get down to the discussion. I know you are not surprised with all the rallies around subnational government for 2026. Take, for instance, the three states that are leading in terms of the budget is Lagos with 4.2 trillion, Delta 1.6 trillion, and Akwa Ibom 1.3 trillion. What do you make of these trillion that are coming to our states at this point in time?
They are mere figures. Nothing is bogus there. If you look at Lagos, for example, what they budgeted was about 4.2 trillion. And when you look at 4.2 trillion holistically, that is just about, it's less than $3 billion. If you look at Lagos economy as of today, it's worth over $150 billion. So realistically, if any revenue is supposed to be collected in Lagos, we shouldn't be talking of anything less than $10 billion. So Lagos as of today should be doing nothing less than $10 billion. That is about 15 trillion. Then you look at Delta States. Delta States, as of today, the economy of Delta States is more than $40 billion. And if Delta, for example, can generate at least 10% of whatever GDP it has on ground, they are supposed to be generating nothing less than $4 billion, which is about 6 trillion or more. So if you look at whatever they are budgeted now, it's too small compared to their economy. It's too small, and it's not enough to grow the economy. It may look bogus in the face. When you hear trillion, you think that is a very big amount of money. But when you convert it to dollar, it's very small, it's microscopic. And what states in Nigeria need, a state like Akwa Ibom a state like Delta, a state like Rivers, a state like Lagos, and others that are highly populated, what they need is not what they are getting. And just as you made mention of as you were introducing this program, you talked about recurrent expenditure. I was even surprised when I look at Lagos. The recurrent expenditure taking about 50% of the budget, which is 2 trillion, is massive. It's too much. Last year, they budgeted about 3 trillion or so. The recurrent expenditure was 1.20 trillion. The time they budgeted 2 trillion or so, the recurrent expenditure was 1 trillion. So the speed at which the recurrent expenditure is growing with the revenue is massive, and it leaves little room for capital projects.
Interesting. But when you talk about the recurrent expenditure, let's take, for example, the Lagos State scenario that we have just painted now. For the Lagos State government, in their own thinking, the recurrent expenditure is to also help them galvanize towards the capital project they are engaging, because we understand that Lagos State also have one of the highest number of employees talking about public service in Nigeria. But from your own understanding, the recurrent expenditure is too big at this point in time. But for on the side of the government, it's like it's something to just match up with what they really need so that they can be able to achieve what they are after. But what do you make of that, their own side? Because for them, it's like the recurrent expenditure needed to match up with capital expenditure because of the various engagements of the state at this point.
Considering the load on ground, if you look at most states, I am very familiar with Delta and Edo State. If you look at Edo, for example, you go through the state, you see the infrastructural decay. Roads are completely bad, and you need a lot of money to fix those roads. And you talk about education, like in Delta here, the area where I live in Delta here, almost everybody has the average income earner have their kids in private schools. None of them, but if you go to the government school, it's filled to the brim. Some of the children, they sit on the floor. So you imagine, let's assume we as the middle income earners, we say, okay, let's all of us take our kids to those public schools so that we don't waste money. Many of us, we know what we spend on school fees. Even at KG, primary and the secondary level, we pay more than what they are supposed to even pay in public universities. So if we say, okay, don't let us visit all these private schools, let's take our kids to public schools so that we can save money. It can't accommodate anybody. The whole schools are filled up to the brim. So you need to build, like in my area here now, they need to build at least 3 or 4 new public schools, employ more teachers. So when you now say you watch the rate at which the recorded expenditure is growing, and not that they are increasing infrastructure, not that they are building more schools, not that they are building more hospitals to take in more workers, but the rate at which is growing should be probed. And sometimes why we don't really trust some of these government figures is that we can't really examine them. If you go through their websites, you just see a lump budget there, budget that you cannot even speak details. So they just tell you they budgeted 3.33 billion on education, 4.30 billion on road, and you see the lumpness of that budget. Even as an educated person, you find you have to take days trying to scrutinize the budget and to understand what it is. A budget should be so simple, in simple slides, that when you paste them, if, for example, you are giving Delta State Polytechnic $10 billion naira this year, somebody should just go to that Delta State Polytechnic website and see what the $10 billion naira is used for. So there's a lot of opaqueness, especially when it comes to the recorded expenditure. You see these governors, they quote, we have 50,000 workers, we have 70,000 workers, we have 100,000. So is it really true? How do we verify these figures?
Interesting. But talking about the recurrent expenditure still yet, for example, one of the arguments of these state governors, because if you look through, most of the state governors that prepared their proposal for 2026, recurrent expenditure is higher than previous year proposal. And majority of the argument they are putting forward right now is that, for instance, in Lagos, which I'm so quite also very familiar with, they have over 4 universities. They have over 3 polytechnics. They have several institutions they cater for. And they also bring up the argument of the new minimum wage. Doc, the new minimum wage has become one of the latest arguments they are now using to jack up their recurrent expenditure. But let's leave that aside. Let's also take a look at some states that are running their budget on billions. Bauchi State is proposing 900 billion. Oyo State is proposing 804 billion. Cross River State is proposing 780 billion. Plateau State is proposing 705 billion. National State is proposing 517 billion. If you take a view of each of these billions, the current expenditure is not having less than 25 to 30%. But what do you make with the argument? The new minimum wage is here. Some of them have new university, they have new polytechnic, so they have to pay workers' salary. But what do you make of all this argument they are putting forward?
It still boils down to what I'm trying to the point I'm trying to build. They are not generating enough. To the layman, when you just hear 700 billion, you think it's very big. Like Kano, for example, I think if I get my figures right, they budgeted about 1.3 trillion.
Exactly.
And when you convert that to naira, to dollar, it's less than $1 billion. For Kano, with almost 18 to 17 million people. And when you break that down to one person, budget per person, you discover that some instances, each citizen is not even getting up to $10 for a year budget. And you are talking of constructing roads, you are talking of building schools, you are talking of building hospitals, maintaining those hospitals. To fix these things is far bigger than what. If we are talking of, we want to make an example with population. Let's assume we use Finland, for example, or Austria. In Finland, they generate over 240 billion to 300 billion dollars for a population of just about 7 to 6 million persons. So it's easy to permutate that country is going to grow. And you now bring it down to somewhere like Delta. Delta is even more populous than 6 million. So let's even try to equate it. Somewhere like Delta, let's assume we are comparing Delta with somewhere like Finland, where you have 300 billion for just less than 6 million people. And you have in Delta less than 1 billion, let me say 1.6, 1 billion for the same population of people. Many Nigerians will be saying we need the same type of service as we are seeing in Finland. So you now ask yourself, how do you use 1 billion? It's 1.6 trillion. Yes, it makes sense when you call it 1.6. Convert it to dollar, it's just about $1 billion. How do you use $1 billion to give an average Nigerian the type of life somebody in Finland is enjoying? And if we say we should go like this, we should just leave the revenue like we keep quoting figures. This year 1.6 trillion data. Next year 1.8 trillion. Next 2 years 2 trillion. You will equally record that as your budget is equal to 2 trillion. Your population that was 6 million before has equally gone to 9 million. So you are still in the same spot. You have not left there. If you calculate, like in Oyo now, go and calculate the same figure that they gave this year, calculate it to 10 years back. You can see that they are still in the same spot. The figures is only changing because of inflation. But without inflation, they still remain where they are 10 years ago. So the biggest problem is revenue generation. The states are not generating revenue. Even with what is coming from Abuja, is meager. And they are not ready to change, because what Nigerians are demanding is that open your books. Let us see how you are spending our money. Let's see where this one and this one is going to. A good governor should just open the books for the people to see. Let my grandmother in the village can able to type his phone, and he will see that here one road was constructed for 2 million. This school used 7,000 to clear their grass. This school used 3,000 to buy chair. So we can see them easily. And now when you come back for more revenue, we will be willing to pay more. But they are opaque. These states are opaque. Know how we paint them, they are opaque. And nobody can trust to give them even more money to spend.
And I'm talking about two things here, two challenges here that we have identified. One is transparency and accountability and responsible governance. Then the second one is revenue generation. But let's take a look at transparency in governance budgeting system in Nigeria. But our focus is not on federal, because most of us are focused on federal. But right now we want to do advocacy around state subnational government budget. And that's why we have someone like you coming on the show. Now, for transparency purpose, what is the way to that?
There are a lot of templates for them to learn from, and I keep using the European countries. I use the US, and even in some Asian countries like Brazil. South American countries like Brazil. I've used many of them as templates. We have a lot to learn from them, because they say he who comes to equity must come with clean hands.
Exactly.
If let's assume the biggest problem, let's start with the local government. If you look at the local governments, for example, they are generating revenue. A lot of those people within those local governments, they are informal sector. Some are bringing down to the market. some have store where they plait hair, some have store where they sell clothes. They all pay revenue. Sometimes, if we look at it, you say Nigerians are not paying tax. Yes, on one point. But if you look at what these people are paying at the informal level, it's more than the tax that corporate companies are paying. Look at, for example, in Benin, I don't know whether they've changed it now. If you look at bus drivers, when they want to load in a garage, before they finish loading, then you see some persons, they come, they say they are union or whatever they call themselves. For one bus, a bus that is loading maybe to get 20,000 naira, you see the tout within that bus terminal, they take sometimes, some take as high as 5,000, some take as high as 10,000, half of what these drivers are supposed to get per trip. And that person keeps the money in his own pocket. So what government is supposed to do, especially at this local and state level, first of all, bring these informal people down to formal sector. You cannot use some touts to be looking for, moving from store to store, collecting money. The money cannot be accounted for. They go to this store, they take 2,000. They get to that store, they take 5,000. And they gather the whole money. All 90% of that money goes to private pocket. The local government, first of all, have to enumerate whatever stores they have within the local government and put it in a database. We have 100,000 shops. We have 70,000 farmers. We have 13 fish farmers. And at the end of the day, this is the revenue we collected from them. Have websites, and so that we see this data. Not that you just collect money blindly. The chairman that is collecting the money, is richer than the local government. None of them have website anywhere. None. The only one from my research is about 8 or so. 3 from Ogun, 2 from Oyo, and somewhere else. But the rest of them collect billions upon billions. Nigerians are paying it, drivers are paying, keke people are paying, Okada men are paying. So where is the money going to? Private pocket. So we have to have a trade. There should be a law. And that is why the states House of Assembly, they are failing. The councillors, they are failing. Like for me here, I don't even know my councillor, I don't know my chairman. They are so opaque. They meet in the dark. No, they no station to see how they meet, no website to monitor how they meet. They just meet in the dark, share money in the dark, and everything is gone. So there must be a law. Starting, if there's a way the federal can compare the states, if they should do it, because it's an SOS. This is an SOS. We can't keep sitting down here and say we shouldn't be bothered. Our population is ballooning. Like last year, the population grew by almost 3%, and this year it may grow by the same 3%. And when the economy is growing like 3%, revenue is not increasing, then we are setting ourselves in for a very big time bomb.
Exactly.
So there must be a transparency website, for all local governments, all their departments. If you are taking the 3,000 to Department of Work for a local government, let us see it. If you buy one granite, a lorry of granite this week, let us see it within your website. If you have 30,000 staff, let us see the staff. Let us have a roster of the staff. So you don't just come as a local government chairman and say, I have 5,000 workers that I'm paying. How do we verify it? Exactly. The state must follow cue. They must do the same.
Doc, I really want to appreciate you for coming on the show today. Quite elusive in terms of one of your submissions for today. And I believe the authorities are listening. And it's a developing issue because other states are still coming up with their budget. But the 10 states we have been able to reveal out today, they already put their budget at their state assembly for review. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Doc.
It's my pleasure.
All right. So enjoy your rest of your day over there in Delta State.
Thank you.
All right. I've been speaking with Dr. Osodeke Onovughe, who happens to be an economist, an energy economist, as well as a public affairs analyst, helping us to have a perspective on subnational government 2026 budget proposal. And the key issue is that transparency as well as revenue generation. Even the money is large on paper, but compare it to what the kind of development that most of us are demanding from them is quite small based on what Dr. Osodeke is saying. Our next discussion segment will commence shortly. Looking at PMS price, diesel price, kerosene price, cooking gas price. Christmas is less than 27 days away from now. So we want to look at that local petroleum product price mechanism in Nigeria. Because the moment festive period comes, there is this kind of opportunities that come to filling station and the rest of them who are doing this business to either take advantage of the season by increasing their price. But Dr. Jeremiah Olad today will be joining me shortly so that we can have a review of all these petroleum product price going forward as Christmas and New Year celebration approach. But let's go for this break first.